Hello and welcome everyone to a review of The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson. We will be first doing a spoiler-free review, and then in the second half of the episode, we will be doing spoilers all for the entirety of the Malazan series. So beware. Joining me today is Hurin and a special guest, Sean from the Discord. Welcome, Sean.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Welcome,
All
Sean.
right, let's just dive right into it. What did you guys think of the book?
I thought it was brilliant. It's not my favorite of all the Malazan books I've read, but it's definitely top half. So that's good praise. I loved every minute of it. I loved the characters. I loved the themes. I loved the epigraphs. I loved everything about it. It was great.
I would agree top half, but if you want to go off of my Goodreads rating, I put it at a 4 stars. Maybe would have gone 4.5 if it was possible, but like half the series I have at 5 stars. But I think it was really strong in doing a complete arc for a lot of characters, while also leaving room for those characters to progress. And I feel like that's not present in every main Malazan book where characters really have a fully realized arc in one of the novels. So I thought that was a great benefit of the book. As you mentioned, the themes were strong as they usually are, um, but those are great to read. And the plot is one instance where I would say it's not as good as some of the main 10 for sure. But great book. I loved it. I love anything Steve writes.
That's a really good point about it being a lot more. The characters all have complete arcs because compared to literally any of his other work, except for probably the novellas, this is a lot more condensed
Yeah,
in every way.
Mhm.
I
'Cause
read it in
it's
under 2 weeks.
yeah. I read it twice since it came out. So
Oh wow.
the second time was audiobook.
hmm
Yeah, it felt really, really good to be getting more stuff from the world. I love Carcanis a lot. I possibly love it more than the main series, but this feels very much like a continuation of Book of the Fallen, whereas Carcanis feels like something entirely different. And the themes are strong. Most importantly to me, this did not feel repetitive. It felt like Steve had new things to say and new ways to express those ideas, which he was actually worried about in our interview, if you guys remember. He felt that maybe he'd said all that he needed to say. I, man, I love the man, but I think he's dead wrong.
Yeah.
He's, oof. The cast of characters, like he has a lot of good new ones. They feel very fresh, very unique, and the plot goes in. Okay. So the plot, I do think somewhat drags, but the conclusion I thought was unexpected and very fitting as well. I really liked the conclusion.
Mhm. It was kind of I can't I don't want to go into spoilers obviously, but it was kind of one of those anti-conclusions that we've gotten in the past
Mm-hmm.
with
House of
some
Chains.
books, House of Chains, Fall of Light, where it's like not exactly what you'd expect, but it wraps it all up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking at it after it's finished, it makes complete sense, even though it's not what you expected at all.
Yeah. Like it's not a big bombastic conclusion, but at the same time, like that's not all Steven Erikson writes, right? Like he does both. And I like that he mixes it up because there are authors that they have a hard time with the structure of their novels. It like sometimes gets a bit repetitive, right? I don't think Steve does.
Agreed, 100%.
Um, if we go back to writing style, I thought that this one was a lot more accessible than anything he's ever written. It's a lot more straightforward, and it's not nearly as obscure as a lot of his other writing. And I think this might sound like a criticism, but I don't think it is. his theming is a lot more obvious.
Yeah, it's definitely narrower in scope than most of his other stuff. Like everything from the cast of characters to even like the geographical position is a lot more constrained than anything since Gardens of the Moon, and probably more constrained even than that, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually that's one of the reasons I liked it, but I actually didn't realize that till now, just because that helped in making it feel different than a lot of the other books, because it really was just so constrained.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like this is a short story essentially. What's happening here with these tribes, this one army, and a mercenary army, and then let's just see how that plays out. But also, it's based upon past events, and it leads into a whole lot of things as well.
Yeah, more than anything else, this does feel like a sequel to House of Chains for me. I'm really glad it worked out perfectly, the timing with the Malazan read-along, because we just finished House of Chains, and now we're going into this, and it's like, oh my god, all of these events are fresh in my mind. This is excellent.
Choo-choo.
Exactly. So there's... okay, so people know that if you've been following along with the story of him writing this book, there was a particular character that a lot of people were excited to see, and that this entire series is going to be based around. And the character is not in this book. I thought, okay. First of all, I trust Steve. I thought that I was going to be bothered more by this than I was, but this felt like, I agree with him. This felt very necessary to whatever comes next. And also, I have no idea what's coming next.
I want to talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. This was perfect for, like, I think I would be disappointed any other way, because Steve said he started writing it, and then he realized that he needed to explore the consequences of this character instead of the character itself.
Yeah, I thought it was a great decision. Like the book is better for that decision. Although, if that were to continue for the entirety of the second book in the trilogy, I'd be a little annoyed. But as it stands, big fan of that decision. Although there was one moment with the character where we kind of got a scene, but it doesn't really count. I'll mention it later, I suppose.
Yeah, we could talk about that later.
I also like how this almost feels like it could be an entry point to the series, to Malazan in general. I'm not. I actually don't know. I have to think about it a bit more, but it. I think it's at least a possible place for you to start, and I think it could be a good place for new readers to start if they don't care too much about the biggest of the events from the Book of the Fallen. Like, it could be used to introduce people who are more skeptical into the series to Malazan, because, historically people have been put off by Gardens of the Moon when starting the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you guys think.
I don't know. I feel like it kind of skates that line where, like, honestly, it does spoil a good amount from the main series. If you were to just go into this, but you wouldn't realize there's spoilers until you read the main series. But I think those moments, depending on the type of reader and depending how much someone cares about spoilers, it could be pretty bothersome, and the person could not enjoy that fact. But I think it shares a lot of the bones of what makes Malazan a good series or a great series even. And it's on the shorter side, it's digestible, as you guys mentioned. So I don't know. I don't think I would tell a new reader to start there unless they were really like, I'm not touching the main series, it's too much.
This isn't too long. It's a lot more, like I said, accessible,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more straightforward, and I would recommend it to someone who doesn't care about spoilers and is interested but doesn't want to be sold on a 10-book series.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, people, okay, when when people start the series and they don't like Gardens, then it's very hard to tell if they would like the rest of the stuff he writes or not. Sometimes, I think
Absolutely.
if you don't like this, you won't like Steven Erikson at all.
Good point.
I
I think with
think,
Gardens,
yeah, I think that's
you're
good.
not totally sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, because people bounce off Gardens for 100 different reasons, and it's impossible to tell.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But if you bounce off of this, then probably just not for you.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of other things in the main 10 that make those books great.
Yes, absolutely. This in no way replaces the Book of the Fallen.
Hmm
A nice compliment.
Yes, and so I believe this is the last project that he's doing in the Malazan world. At least that he has any plans for at the moment.
We'll see
And
about that.
He said he still needs to write 3 more Falcalane and Corbel Roach novellas.
yeah, the novellas, yes.
Well, that's like an already established series.
Yeah,
As
that's
Ashaman.
yeah. He's also doing Walk in Shadow, but then once he's done all these things that he's planned already, I believe he's setting his sights on different pastures. And I was more upset about that before I read this book, but I do think that this trilogy or whatever it ends up being will be a very, very good send off to Malazan.
Hmm
That's definitely the vibe
I,
I'm getting.
I agree, especially even in this first book, we got not conclusions, but definitely continuations of some of the threads that were not finished in the Book of the Fallen, which is good. It seems
Mhm.
like that might continue.
If that is true, that won't stop me from bothering him about writing spin-offs and trilogies for various parts of the world, various characters. But um, I do, when I was reading The God's Not Willing, um, there were similarities to the main 10 that I was like, okay, this has been talked about before. Um, namely the theme of compassion. I was like, okay, Steve has really made his point in how important he thinks this is, how important he thinks it is to be empathetic. And I love the exploration of that theme in the main 10 as well as this book. But um I think if we were to do, the next 2 books in this trilogy and then do another trilogy where like that's the main theme, it is kind of it would get old at that point, which I think maybe Steve was thinking about when he mentioned him saying that he didn't have anything new to talk about. But I think that was I think the other new things that he was talking about, particularly real world analogs, um, kind of helped made the repetition of the theme of compassion more palatable. But like I
Absolutely.
said, I always love it being discussed.
This book, I don't think he intended it to be political, but it's hard not to read it that way given current contexts.
Hmm
And I think it's going to become more relevant as the years go on,
I agree.
the next couple decades at least. Uh,
Was it you who said that in our group chat, like about?
it's going to be hard not to get into real world politics.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said that, and I was like, I don't know about that. But then I read like the last 8 chapters, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he was right. It kind of comes up more in the end.
All right. Do you guys think you said all you can about the non-spoiler bit?
Yes, and then some.
Yeah.
All right. So that concludes the spoiler-free section of the review. In case you weren't listening, we liked it. Go read it. We're going to spoil everything now. You have been warned.
Now for the good stuff.
Now for the man. Where to start, right?
Start with the
I think
characters.
I think there's an obvious starting character.
Rant.
Yeah.
Rent's my boy. I haven't cared about a character this much since trying to think, maybe Rennick
Ever.
from the Carcanis books, which wasn't that long ago, but I cared a lot about Rennick.
Wait, who's Rennick again? I don't remember him at all.
Rennick, he was the friend of Orphantoll, and
Oh,
Orphantoll's grandmother forbade them from being friends,
right. Okay.
and Orphantoll's grandmother died, and he saved his girl and vowed vengeance. Poor boy.
hmm
Yeah, Rant, he also gives me Beak vibes in a lot of ways because he's a character that doesn't understand the world. He begins to as the book goes on, but he has a very different conception of what is going on, and it is sort of heartbreaking and also heartwarming as he finds friends, he learns how the world works, and he defends them, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think for you guys can disagree with me, but I think Rant is an exploration of the biggest theme in the book, which, in my opinion, is innocence and
And
the
the
Yeah.
loss
loss
of
of.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's where Beak and him differ, and I do agree that there are similarities there. But Beak never lost his innocence, while this book explores Rant, losing his and
Mhm.
the repercussions of that.
It's probably my favorite exploration of the loss of innocence that I've read, at least in a very long time. Um, it's a very poignant theme. I think everyone has um, strong feelings about the idea of loss of innocence. Um,
Mhm.
and it's something that we like. I don't think anyone feels like they really know how to think about in a good way. So I really like this book for exploring it, and helping me contextualize my feelings towards the idea of losing one's innocence, how much we should protect that, and what it means, even.
I just want to hold him and tell him everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah, no,
So
he's so precious. He's just the most
He's like
precious
little.
character in the Malazan universe by far.
He's like a giant Harlow who grows up.
Yeah, just wants to protect his friends. Just wants to grow old with Damask, and just vibe.
the moment where, okay, Steve, I think, acknowledges just how dangerous it is to introduce any form of time travel into your world. I think he did it very well here. Um, and the moment where Rant draws together the anger of all the innocent people who have been hurt and don't understand why, and uses that for something productive, that was a very moving scene for me, because like it's such a there are very few things that feel as bad as hurting something that is innocent and can't understand why you're hurting it. Like a dog that you like, maybe you accidentally step on its tail and it like looks up at you with heartbroken eyes, wondering what it did, and you
Hmm.
can't explain that it didn't do anything wrong. That
You just gonna say, "Oh no, no, no."
right?
Speaking of that scene, I got real big Shield Anvil vibes from what he did there,
Hmm.
and I was like, does the war bitch get a Shield Anvil? Is this what's happening here? I don't think it's entirely impossible, honestly, that he's a Shield Anvil of some sort.
It
Okay.
felt like a natural continuation of that idea to me.
Yeah. But like, how do you do that kind of feat without being a Shield Anvil? I mean, I know the Chagall assassin was kind of there with him, but
Mhm.
maybe I just don't know enough about Kachain Shamal
Yeah, that
Um,
freeze storyline was
assassin.
weird.
Yeah, it was like it was random but also cool. I don't know. It's
It was
something that
awesome.
yeah.
that, and also, I don't feel like I understand the nature of Rant at all yet.
Hmm.
Because, okay, he's half Tablor, half human,
Hmm.
but
Took him 2 years to come out of the
yeah,
womb.
his Tablor side seems to be a lot stronger. Um, but it's hard to tell exactly what's Tablor and what's human about him. And then also he's connected to a god that's sort of not a god.
Hmm.
Yeah, and how much of that influence is from the blood oil,
Yeah.
and how much does Banger actually understand, right?
Mm. Yeah, I will admit that bit. Uh, I don't understand the implications of it at all.
Yeah. That's
It's
like
cool. It's actually my favorite chapter, but yeah, I agree.
Um,
mhm.
what's his mother's name?
Sarlis?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Sarlis. She
Never reunited.
Never reunited. I am very glad that Steve explored her character in this book because there are there are a few women in the Book of the Fallen that I have very mixed feelings about how he handles them. One of them is Sin. Sarlis is another because she kind of he rapes her in House of Chains, and then mention is made that like it looks like she's been driven crazy, and then she's never revisited, like not even his thoughts. So I'm glad
Felt like
that
something.
Oh, go ahead.
I just said it felt like something that he had to write about.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he wanted to do this whole Witness trilogy justice, it had to be talked about, and especially his the first part of his rape and pillage of Silver Lake and the other villages.
hmm And I'm really glad that he had her healed in this and didn't
Yes.
make her into a tragic character that was beyond saving. That feel like because if he did the latter, I would have been actually pretty upset with him for that. But he didn't, and I'm really glad. I was so hoping that she would be healed.
That was her healing was one of my favorite parts of the book, and I don't think that that'll be an unpopular opinion. But I just loved the extent that Benger went to healing this essentially random woman to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he understood the implications of what she was dealing with and all the torture she was under, but he's he's doing this complicated ritual. All of a sudden, he's like, "I need a dragon," and that kind of spoke like that line right there is like, okay, he's willing to do whatever it takes to heal this woman, and that just is one of the many instances in this book of the Marines showing that they'll do anything for anyone as long as it's a good thing to do and it helps people.
The right thing because it's right.
Yeah, it also perfectly sets up how they act at the end. Because even Stillwater, who is, I don't think I can really categorize her neatly. She seems sort of on the spectrum, sort of
You think so?
antisocial
Yeah, maybe a little
personality
bit.
disorder.
Maybe I'm not an expert, but I didn't get that.
She doesn't. Okay, so she's not someone who can understand other people at all or like social customs.
That was obvious in her discussion about understanding jokes.
Yeah, exactly right. So she doesn't understand why people laugh at other people's jokes at all, and she doesn't understand why people find her funny, which is a very endearing trait, by the way. But like even she, who is a very morally compromised person, doesn't even hesitate to save Sarlis or the Tebler refugees at the end of the book, and that felt really good to read.
Yes.
Do you feel like the Marines were too good?
Yeah.
I
That's like
don't.
I was alluding to that when I talked about how he kind of rehashed the themes of compassion because I really thought that through all of the Marines, that was like really hammered home. And it got to the point where it was a little not believable, but it was still great to read and like it didn't like take me out of it entirely or even a medium amount. But it got to the point where I was like, where is like shouldn't there be some sort of self-preservation in these Marines, like even an ounce? Because like there were some in the 14th.
And Blistig
And
is a good example.
yeah,
Blistic
Lustig is
wasn't a Marine.
he gets a bad rap though. He was just like you know to
No,
board.
he was a great character. I understand Blistig.
Oh yeah,
I agree. We need a little bit more of that grayness.
yeah.
So my take on this is Steve has always had a special place in his books for the Marines. It seems like they are a force that really self-selects for compassionate people, unconventional thinkers, stuff like that. And they also, he sort of addresses that in this book, saying that in a section where I forget who's talking to who, but the point is made that the Marines aren't normal, and it's hard to it's easy to forget that when you're surrounded by them, right? But when they come into contact with other groups, then you can see what makes them exceptional. And I do think that it is possible to have a culture like the Marines where people have very strong values, especially one where they sort of self-select to be that way.
Hmm.
Um,
I have
and
a theory about
yeah.
this as well.
Hmm?
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's hear it.
I think that maybe the part of this actually kind of comes off as propaganda. So like a lot of the epigraphs are written about the history like after the fact of the Malazan Empire, right?
Mhm.
So in a way, this could be seen as a I don't know, a propaganda piece of like, hey, you should join the military. But I think a real good in-universe explanation would be a lot of people became Marines because they heard of the exploits of the Bone Hunters and of Coltane's
Mhm.
march.
I can see it.
And like these are values that they don't even really think about. Like the Marines, none of them feel like they're doing something exceptional when they're saving refugees, right? It's like what kind of monster wouldn't do this, right? Like so it feels very analogous to things that like I think everyone today would consider morally reprehensible, like just like allowing children to die. I
Mhm.
think placed in those kinds of situations, a lot of people would um, be very self-sacrificing and work to, you know, protect those who need protection, especially if they were surrounded by like-minded people, and especially if like-minded people had almost no thought of self-preservation, like the Marines always do.
Hmm. Uh, there was this one line I wrote down because I was like, it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about, but it just said, on all sides, more and more Marines were running to the mob, disappearing to the rolling dust when they're trying to save people. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a great visual, just them running toward this storm just to save as many people as they could, which we all knew was not going to be much.
Felt very 9/11 to me.
Mm-hmm. It's a good
That's
point.
what that brought into mind. And the firefighters, they
Yeah,
did that, right?
exactly. It's maybe not that unbelievable.
My favorite chapter was Sarlas being healed, but my second favorite was chapter 19 when the Teblor attack and then the water comes and then the Marines turn around
Oh
and
my
start
god.
saving everyone. And Dalus, the perspective of Dalus as she dies, really
Mhm.
trying to be saved by a Marine who just gets torn apart trying to open his warren was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the most intense chapter of the book. Uh, and yeah, it was intense. I was reading it and like just felt despair. I was like, oh my god, these visuals are brutal. Like this flood's just tearing everyone apart. Like no one's having any sort of success in saving people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was also like, which army are these Teblor coming up on? Like who on the other side is dying right now that I might know? So I was kind of like anxious with that, reading the next couple chapters. And then you kind of realize that I was like, okay, it was like this side army and like the area where the flood was more strong in the west. So that was relieving, but I was really on the edge of my seat for like multiple chapters after that, wondering if we were gonna see the other perspective and like all of a sudden, Benger is one of the guys that's trying to hold back the water somehow or whatnot.
Um, and that's also the chapter in the book where sort of everything changes because it sort of seems for a lot of the book like I think his name is Alade Third.
Blade
Theros?
Tharos.
Yeah. Um, he was going to be the antagonist of this little trilogy. Now he gets wiped out by mines.
Yeah.
Almost all the Teblor do. They're
Yeah.
just like children fighting a giant.
Hmm. And that very reminiscent of not just World War One, which is the obvious parallel that I think everyone will think of, but there were a lot of famous scenes like this in African history where the colonial powers were invading them with very small forces, and the African tribesmen would try and repel the people who were invading their land, and they would just get slaughtered by the thousands. Um, there's one very famous Zulu encounter where the Zulu won, but it was against like 150 British soldiers who ran out of bullets, essentially. and thousands of Zulu men died. Even though, like, individually they're all like immensely skilled fighters, right? It just doesn't matter when technology goes past you. Just like the Teblor, they could have. Yeah, we know the damage the Teblor can do, but
Didn't get close enough.
yeah, you just get blown up before you get there. Then, and in a later chapter where it's they're defending the village of Silver Lake, and you see the horror on the Malazan soldiers' faces as they just keep coming, even though they're only getting blown to smithereens.
Why don't they stop?
Yeah,
They don't have any other choice.
That reminds me. I was like, when I was reading this entire book, I was like, okay, can't they just like ask to get some land?
it
Because
turns out yes.
yeah, exactly. It's like it turns out all they had to do was ask, and I get why they didn't, kind of, but and like time was an issue, but like the Malazan Empire, and I'm sure we'll talk about refugees at some point as well, but the Malazan Empire is very well equipped to handle refugees, more so than any country on Earth, like by far, I would assume. Like they have land aplenty, they have everything you could possibly need to hold refuge, to hold refugees, and they're already on the continent. They just had to move south. But they didn't try to ask. It was kind of infuriating the whole time.
They were too proud.
Yeah.
I understand perfectly why. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just part of Templar culture. You couldn't expect something like that.
it's human culture too. I promise one day I will shut up about historical parallels, but
No, please don't.
ancient Rome was like this. This exact scenario essentially happened dozens of times. There are very famous instances where tribesmen would come from the north, usually, fleeing usually environmental conditions, and they would try and invade the country, the republic or the empire, depending on which it was at the time. And the Romans usually would just crush them. And later, they would take a lot of slaves, but they would also settle these tribes in their empire as well. Especially if they came in peace, they would just, kind of insert them into some empty lands and then say, okay, you're Roman citizens, you're not Roman citizens, but you're part of the empire now. Pay your taxes. That's it. And the very famous barbarian hordes that are responsible for the sack of Rome, most of them thought of themselves as Romans, which is funny. Like, it was a Roman general who had Gothic heritage who sacked Rome in the first place.
And we see toward the end of the book, there's that one Teblor woman who is on one of the barges that escaped, and her friend or fellow Teblor is talking about how they could overrun the barge right now, knock all the Malazans off, and take control. And then she ends up killing him because she's like, "I'm not gonna let you sow this discord. These Malazan Marines are amazing, this and that." And it's kind of similar to what you're talking about, how just like those people would consider themselves Romans, I think a lot of these Teblor will become part of the Malazan Empire and fight for them.
Absolutely.
But for a more noble reason, I suppose.
And yeah, she stopped him because she knew there wasn't any hope of him ever coming around to her way of thinking.
Yeah, that as well.
Too proud, too set in his ways. He wouldn't be able to change his thinking process.
This might be a bad transition, talking about one-sided slaughter, but I loved when Bulk was talking to Otto about. No, it wasn't Otto. It was his three Nightblades about they're fighting the Malazans, and they had 1,000 men against 80 Marines, and they got their asses handed to them.
They're like, yeah, we won. We like almost wiped them out.
Like, do you know how many soldiers we lost?
So you weren't paying attention, were you? We had 1,000 against 80 Marines, and we took out
They were down to
2/3
like,
of them.
yeah, and they went down to like 500 or something.
Yeah, through casualties. Yeah, wounded and just outright killed. Yeah, that's what superior fighting styles and discipline gets you.
Oh yeah.
How did you like the mercenary? What was their mercenaries group name?
I don't think they had one.
Like
Yeah, it was just
like
Bulks.
Legion or something like that.
Yeah. How did you like that?
Oh, you Ash.
I think they were composed of interesting characters. The mercenary group itself felt a little shapeless to me, but at the same time, it felt like they were mostly there to draw a contrast to the Marines in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because at once they weren't incompetent fools, and at the same time they're nowhere near the caliber of the Malazan Marines. I very thoroughly enjoyed all of their assassins getting just taken out one by the Malazans.
That was fun
Yeah.
to read.
Mhm.
Banger and Stillwater.
Stillwater.
Like I said, I read it twice. Read and listened. First time I didn't care for Bulk or his storyline or any of the characters, but the second time I actually really enjoyed Bulk's character. But it's still probably my least favorite part of the book.
I like Bulk himself. I think he's probably the strongest part of his mercenary group. I kind of like how he was always trying to be conniving, but he was also realistic in like knowing his mercenaries' place with respect to Malazan Marines. But I especially liked at the end where he like found purpose in escorting the Jack.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a good moment.
Yeah, I love how it was like inspired by the Marines.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I do think overall, the mercenaries were best when just shown how incompetent they were compared to the Malazans. Like there was a lot of humor there and a lot of just badassery from the Malazans on the mercenaries. I think like that was probably just their best use in the book, other than Bulk stuff, at least for me.
The Marines infighting felt a lot like the Crimson Guard.
Hmm.
That's all.
Except for not eternally cursed.
Yeah, no availed.
So the Marines as a fighting force in this are a lot different from the Marines we saw in Book of the Fallen, right? And I really liked the evolution of their tactics. For example,
Less
they don't
munitions.
have Moranth munitions anymore. They have Imperial ones, which are inconsistent.
That's why they plant them.
Yeah, that's why they do minefields and what's her face? Annex?
Annex Fro?
Eric's
Yeah.
Annex Pro.
Annex. She basically makes a cannon, a hand cannon, and
Never gets to use.
yeah, that's setting up for future books, right? And also, almost all of them were low-level mages, which
That was insane.
yeah, that's pretty much analogous to them all having guns.
Yeah.
So the Malazan army is very much modernizing, and Malacrel has well, he seems to be doing good for the Empire at the moment.
There was that one line towards the end, like someone had a complaint about him. They were like, "Yeah, Malik's doing real good, but except this one, like huge downside."
Yeah, and Spindle's like Malacrel's a but at least he's good at his job. Let him have the throne.
Ohms is gonna get him.
Oh yeah, Holmes
yes.
is like he might need a stab in the back.
Yeah,
Or
Ohms, who is not a claw, he is
Not a claw.
a talon.
Yeah,
He's dead calling me a claw.
I
I'm
got
not a
that way
claw.
too late. It was like that last scene that we're just referencing now, and once like I don't know why it clicked for me, but he said not a claw. I was like, oh, Steve's doing this again.
The
It's a talent.
the thing that tipped me off, and yeah, this is way too late, right? But when he says that there wasn't a pendant around his neck,
Yeah,
I was like, oh,
yeah, that was part of it for me too.
Ohms.
Do you think any of the characters we met in this book are secret identities of people we know in other books?
I kept my eye out, but
I don't
I don't
think
think
any of the
so.
Marines. Maybe some other characters, but I think the Marines are all genuinely new cast members. And
What about Storp? Do you think he's anyone?
Storp? Storp might be someone,
The bartender.
but he also might just be a retired Marine.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Storp, maybe we saw him in Dead House Gates.
Didn't he say he was like he was in
He did, yeah.
he was like worked along with the bridge burners. Okay, so maybe not then. That's probably just the entirety of his backstory.
He was annexed.
Speaking
Yeah.
of returning characters, we get the legacy of Silgar in this book. And I love how Erikson dealt with Silgar's son. You just have Lieutenant Gruff. Gruff, is it?
Gruff. I love Gruff.
Yeah, Gruff is
Gruff's
awesome.
one of my favorites.
Who just kind of puts him in his place and is like, I have no respect for you. Your wealth was built on slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to listen to you. And
yeah, we can't say the line of the podcast, but he gives him a great line.
yeah, and this is another bit where it's kind of hard to not mention real world politics, but people who have wealth that was generated off the exploitation of others, I have no respect for such people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave it at that.
I think anybody in rich countries benefit from the exploitation of
That's
poor
true.
people.
That's absolutely true.
Not to say that what they did was okay, but I think it's a lot more complex than that.
It is very complicated. I'm talking about specifically the
Slavery.
like slavery and situations like that, where it's like there's this person who actively caused a lot of evil in this world, and either them or their descendants still have a lot of influence even after that practice has been abolished.
And Silgar's the worst.
Silgar, ooh, he got what was coming to him, but
Oh yeah. At least all.
I really, really liked the part at the end when who was it? Was it Spindle talking to a dying Temblor? Maybe it wasn't Spindle, but the Temblor said, "All I wanted you to do was to burn down the city."
Yeah, that's all they wanted.
And he took a vote, and everybody agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
We could do that.
They wanted the legacy of their slavery destroyed.
Yeah, that was fantastic. It reminded me of back to Salis, right? That's her name. Sarlis.
Yeah.
Remind me back to her healing, where we get an animator rake appearance, more or less.
Was that just an illusion, or was it actually like, I don't know, Animander in there?
I think it was actually him.
I mean, he sounded noble enough. I actually thought it was gonna be Draconis at first because it seemed like more of darkness incarnate, but whatever. It seemed to be Rake. It read as Rake, at least to me. And
No, it definitely is Rake, but I mean, was it like really Rake? Or was it
yeah, I don't know.
an illusion of Rake?
That huge army that was chasing them of demons thought it was Rake. But they asked Rake to destroy the Ototaro moon or sun. And the reason they give is to save a life, and he said that's reason enough. Which
that is always
kind of
sufficient.
was similar to that one dying Templar asking to burn the city.
Yeah.
That was at least
That was a great part.
good moments.
Yeah, especially because before this, Animander makes it clear that these things are out for essentially his soul, and he's only ever safe as like a formless thing in chaos.
Yeah, when he's like traveling or moving, something like that.
And then he risks it all to save one person he's never met.
Yep. Love Rake.
Mm-hmm.
Love Rake. I think that that's fitting as character, especially from what we learn of Toll the Hounds. But I also think that means that the character at the end of Sail and Blood and Bone is not Rake.
Right. I never liked that theory anyway. Although I never read the book, but I've read up on it. But yeah, I mean that's probably Spinnik.
I think it's Spinnik.
Yeah.
Spinnik Durov.
Who is a very cool person.
I like Spinnik.
He's so cool.
That was the Andy that fought Calor, right? I'm thinking of the correct person. Okay.
Yeah.
And who Calor sort of shouts his he shouts at him. He didn't want to kill Whiskey Jack and all these other sorts of things, and it makes a lot of people sympathize with Calor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what made me sympathize with Calor was like, just the amount of self-hatred the guy has.
That too.
It's like, how could you hate me? Nobody could hate me more than I hate myself.
Mm-hmm.
Man, ouch.
I challenge him on that. No, I don't have that much.
Yeah, he has been cursed to life unending, so...
I love the respect that he gives Spinnock in that scene, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Did any of you guys understand the new Ikariam's magic?
The runts, no.
Wanted to talk about this.
What? Okay, I don't even understand why runt was a word that they used. Like, there's a scene where he sort of explains it, but that flew
It's a
over my head.
coin.
Mappo, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
But like,
Mappo.
what about a coin makes you think runt?
I guess there's some sort of synonym. I don't know. Or at least an in-world synonym.
Maybe.
I think it's just something that connects to Ikariam's Worms, and the closest association people will have with Ikariam is Mappo. I'd like to think that Ikariam remembered Mappo and named the runs after him.
But I love how you spend like I didn't get what I would even consider a full understanding of the Warrens till like Dust of Dreams,
Uh-huh.
and then you finish the series, and then you start the Gods Not Willing. And it's like, all right, here's X amount of more Warrens that you don't understand. You don't know how many there are. You don't know which there are.
Mhm.
Have fun. You thought you had it easy. Now, no, it's still gonna be hard.
They were very much in the Nation Sage in Crippled God and Dust of Dreams, but now they
Yeah.
are fully established, and
Yeah.
no one understands what they do.
I didn't even know there were new Ikariam's Worms until my second read through.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Huh.
My reading comprehension is not great.
That's like how, that snake child was able to use that magic and whatnot and sin stuff. But
Sin and Grub going through it, yeah.
But yeah, there's like there could be any Warren now, and then it was Spindle talking to that other like Monkrat. Yeah, Spindle talking to Monkrat, and Monkrat kind of gave a bit of a exposition on the Warrens. Talked about
Yes.
how like there's about a bunch of free Warrens like up for grabs, more or less,
Mhm.
and
He's angling to become a god.
yeah, like ex Bridgeburner is like our first in line because of the blessing and Whiskey Jack and whatnot.
Um,
I
and
like Munkrat came back.
I just really like the bit where the bridge burners are separate from everybody else. Just because it, like, in the real world, the analogy to this is just people who've been through traumatic events. No one ever really quite understands them unless you've been there, right? And
Shared
so
trauma.
you can have veterans who've been separated for decades, and they meet up and they pick up right where they left off, essentially.
I liked all the new curses. Iskar's limp and
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it felt very. It felt made the world feel very organic.
I was wondering like how do these curses become happenstance? Like I feel like everyone's on the same page with all these curses, with all the names of the gods. It's kind of interesting.
the priests are everywhere, right? I mean, this is a world
Mm.
where we could literally interact with the gods, and
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
priests do every day. And then you could also use the deck of dragons to know who they are, and now the runts to get some sort of. Did you notice that the runts had the same names that Featherwitch was giving out
Yes.
near the
Oh, there was something that made me think of Featherwitch in this book.
Stillwater
Feather.
scarf.
What was it?
Stillwater scarf. I'm pretty sure
I'm so happy you remembered. Yeah.
the ghost is Featherwitch. Yeah. So
Yes.
she
Yes,
she
no.
says Erastus's hold isn't going anywhere.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody says feathers itch as a
Mm.
curse, and I think that was in reference to Featherwitch.
Oh man, I do not like Featherwitch.
No.
She's awful.
She's such a mean person. But you know what? She's perfect for Erastus because Erastus is the worst.
Yeah.
Where we knows.
Let's see what else.
Gruff.
Gruff.
Gruff. We talked about Gruff.
Gruff felt like really okay. I think Erikson has made a concerted effort to up his representation game in this.
Is Gruff gay?
I got heavy gay vibes from him, right? If he's
I
not,
thought he was just I thought he was just the fop of all fops.
It's entirely possible that he is, and I think that it could easily go either way.
I agree.
You know, Aura. Wait, no, never mind. Think of someone else. Sorry.
But yeah, like it's very much being gay in this universe. No one cares, right? Like on Rant's initiation night, what's her face Daelus's daughter. Palk? Was it?
Pake.
Oh,
I don't think it was an L.
She was like, yeah, if you want a guy, we can get you a guy, but like I'm here, so.
That was another great scene.
I just liked that.
Hick Guild.
And also, women have a lot more of a starring role in this book than they
A lot of women.
had before. Yeah, women are really the focus. It feels, which I really liked.
I'd still say the main characters are probably Bulk, Spindle, and Rant,
Maybe.
and Stillwater.
Stillwater, I would put up there. Karsa's daughters are really important.
They are, but they still
Like the middle third.
in relation to Rant.
Yes. Absolutely. But there are, I don't know. Okay.
It seems like there's a lot more female Marines too.
Yeah, whole lot. Like a solid 50-50, maybe more female in that army.
Yeah, and also the Fist is a woman. Again.
Oh yeah.
The females in the Malazan army really carry the show a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually highlighted a couple of quotes that I really liked about women. Your sisters are doing what all sisters do, whispering and gossiping in their pack. Decisions will be made, and all the rules men once thought inviolate have now changed, though they know it not. Nightly, women reshape the world.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, I think there's... Yeah, okay. You have sisters now, and so I am warning you. Sisters are not like mothers, not like grandmothers, and not like daughters. It might even be that they are their own divers, an uncanny pack of demons who but choose to mimic your form. They will decide things for you. They will decide things about you, too. They will chart the map of your future, not because they expect you to follow it, but to ensure their own disappointment when you don't. People with a lot of sisters, get back to us on how you feel about this passage.
Like Erikson's got to have a sister just from that knowledge, but I don't think he does. I have no idea.
I have no clue. But we're talking about Gruff. Let's go back to Gruff.
Yeah, Gruff. I don't know. I just love him. I love everything about him. I love the way he talks. I like his foppishness.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way he dresses, and just especially that scene we talked about where he talks with Silgar younger, and he's got a sense of justice that I could.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good leader,
and he has a lot of homosexual coded traits, but at the same time he's portrayed very positively, right? Like he's not sure he likes to keep his nails manicured, but he's not afraid to get his hands dirty at all.
Mm-hmm.
I love the line where I think Sarlis was joining the Marines and helping them like with their sewing and stuff, and somebody mentioned that somebody was the second best seamstress next to
Gruff.
Next to Gruff.
Related to that, I love how Stillwater returns her armor to get repaired, and they just take new armor and scuff it up a bit. And give it to her.
And she wanted her the
studs rearranged. Yeah,
the nipple studs to be in different spots
to get what's his face off guard. It's like he's getting too complacent. I love everything Stillwater in this book. She is like the character I found most humorous since Tehol, and she feels so unique. She might be my new favorite assassin.
I think like most of my quotes or like most of my highlights were just Stillwater things.
She's
I think
so cool.
I think one of her funniest moments was when they're healing Rant's mom, and she's like arguing with Annex, like she's being very passive aggressive about the side that she's holding when that huge demon army is coming at them. She's like, I mean, I would have liked the other side, but fine, this is fine too. I was just dying. Like,
I'll take the left. Like, I'm much better on the right, and I would have preferred it, but whatever. I can take the left. It's fine.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm not taking that guy.
Extra was great too.
She thinks that she's innovative too. She's the first one to come up with the warrior mage concept.
Oh my god, that was hilarious.
She was the first one.
That was like right at the beginning. I was like, I'm pretty sure there's like a million. Like, I mean,
everyone else
obviously we
stole
know
her idea, right?
I was thinking when she first mentioned it, I'm gonna be the first assassin mage. Really? Am I? Did I misread the Book of the Fallen? And then everybody just gives her crap for it.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like it's really common knowledge too. Like everyone knows that claws are assassin mages.
Yeah, she gets her reality crushed like 10% of the book.
Also, she stubbornly insists for most of the book that she is not a mage. Even though everyone's like, no, you're clearly what you're gonna do right now is you're gonna disappear into your war, and she's like, no, I'm just gonna hide. Turn away.
You're discrediting my natural talent.
I mean, she's not a traditional magic user. Maybe that's her mindset. Who knows? She's not throwing fireballs at people.
Yeah, she really just used Mianis or Emerlon, she calls it, as a. That's what I want to. Is it Emerlon or is it Mianis?
I don't know.
Well, remember Cotillion tells her that Emerlon is just the Tist Eater name for it.
Well, okay, in the Book of the Fallen, they are different warrens, right?
Yes and no. It's really
but-
wishy washy.
Yeah, shadow, like as I've said before, it's really complicated.
Oh yeah.
I
Not
like
even to mention the Ascent.
Yeah, I like to think that she is using Emerlon, like Emerlon itself, rather than Munis or Makra or
Maybe
Rashawn.
the Warrens have gotten so mucked up that humans can easily access Emerlon now.
Yeah, maybe. And like Stillwater, she's a very deviant personality, let's say. Like she's not similar to anyone else at all. So if anyone was to be able to access Shadow, I think that she would be a great candidate.
Yeah, but I don't know. Cotillion also was like, you just read that out of that book. I feel like he would have known that to be true. Who knows?
I love her conversation with Cotillion.
Yeah,
He's just left.
you're not Cotillion. I've seen pictures of him.
He's much
He's
handsome.
Statues are
much-
much more handsome.
Afterwards, she knew it was Cotillion too, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She just likes getting under people's skin. Poor Cotillion.
We had an
All
Edgewalker.
our poor friends. Yeah, Edgewalker saves her.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know more about Edgewalker. Steve, give us more
Yeah.
Edgewalker.
Maybe this is the trilogy, man.
Yeah, or maybe
we talk-
Walk in Shadow.
We need a not a rom-com. We need a sitcom with Edgewalker and Cotillion and Kellen Bed.
Just
Yeah.
running Shadow.
And Plush can show up here and there.
Yeah, there's a lot of material they could do there because all the Shadow demons are so funny as well.
Hmm. It's the best Warren. Let's be real.
Yeah, I definitely get the feeling that it's Erikson's favorite as well.
Yeah.
He
Because
basically told us that, right?
Did he?
Well, in our interview, he said if your magic system has
illusion.
illusion, just go to town with it. So I
Yeah.
have a feeling that's what he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. In his games, yeah. I think I believe he's famous for that.
I also loved how Stillwater was like trying to tame the hounds by just like playing fetch.
Yes,
Oh, next time I see
I
the
wanted a
fingers today.
bath.
so funny. Stillwater's so funny. She like takes a tent peg and like tosses it out.
Yeah. She ends up actually fighting one, which is also great.
Yeah,
Like brings him to the flood, which it was impressive and also hilarious.
mm-hmm. And then she
She's so
gets gets his respect. So
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Damask yet.
Oh, he MVP of like the first half of the book for
yeah,
my
talk about
enjoyment
a
as
way
well
to set
as
up a character.
I know. He was like equivalent to Torvald for me in just how he really brought out a Tebler character.
Mm-hmm.
He was great.
I agree. He and Rant were really what drove the first part of the book for me. And man, Damask was not a good guy, but like this exploration of his character and him trying to, he can't make up for the stuff that he did, but he could try, and that's where it counts, right? And his conversations with Rant and the relationship that they made was just very touching.
Yeah, I really like how he doesn't let himself off the hook, and
He doesn't make excuses for himself.
yeah, exactly. And it feels very much like Steve is telling us, if you knowingly compromise your integrity, this is kind of where you end up at the end of your life. If you're lucky, you can also just delude
Yeah.
yourself until you die. But you can also end up like Damask, who is just he's so damaged by the things that he's done.
Still love him though.
I do love him. What? So when he went to that cave, what happened there?
You mean the Azath hold?
Was it a hold? Oh, yeah, it was an Azath hold.
And released that god.
Like when he went through the warren to like and then came upon the sky keeps, that part?
And they found the Sky Keeps, and then he
Yeah,
released
that was
the
an Azath
god.
hold.
That was. It felt more like when Lorik went into the memory of Ruraku in House of Chains. Was it a past hold, or is it linked to the
Well, it
past?
was. I don't know. I mean, that stuff is hard to understand. Um, it could be. I mean, I don't know where else there'll be 4 sky keeps. Could change them all, other than the past.
My theory is that I at least don't think that the Change Jamal are native to Wu, the
Agreed.
world of Malazan.
Yeah.
So I believe that once upon a time they were on one planet, and then they started just spreading, and maybe they're still like I think this was just like another world in which like they had colonized and that they were still successful on. And
Is this the first time we've seen a Zath hold instead of a house?
I think
I believe so.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that? I wonder. Does that just
That
mean
made
it's
it
more
more-
ancient?
It's really old, right? It has to do with the Jek, and the Jek are like the oldest culture that is still surviving, right? I think.
In the Karkanos books, were the Jek soul taken or divers?
I
It had to be divers, right?
I think they're like a mix, right? I think the ones we meet in this book are diverse, partially because of like they're just powerful. Like Gower is the leader, right? But also it might just be they're the black Jek, and there are different tribes of Jek out there.
Well, so do you remember in Fall of Light when all of the children Jek are killing each other and the Teist are freaking out?
Yeah.
Do you think that they were divers and they were just killing different parts of each other? That the children themselves might actually still be alive? I don't know.
No.
I was thinking about when was it Nilgard or Gowan was saying the Jek know death intimately.
Could be.
You don't think so?
I have no clue.
I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah, we finally
a good
got
thought.
something of an explanation of how diverse work.
Yeah, that was cool.
I was really happy about that.
Yeah.
He also doesn't go too far. It's just like, a very.
How do you explain to a Tebor child?
Yeah, exactly.
I love how
Yellow.
Rand asks all the questions too. He's like, "How does this work? Like, what do you see?" I'm like,
Yes.
"Thank you for asking these questions. The readers have been wondering for so long." And then his sisters are like, "Shut up."
Or like fish out of water.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, Rand, you are just the MVP right now,
Mm-hmm.
asking all these questions." I need a Rand to be present at every weird instance in the Malazan universe.
Right. Shows up.
I,
It's like, what's going on here? Someone explain it
Yeah.
to me.
Give me every
do you
detail right now.
do you think Rand's going to be in the future books?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
certainly
he will
hope
be
so.
integral.
We'll see him meet Karsa.
I think his relationship with Karsa will be pretty central.
I like how
How about the Marines?
Stillwater, yes.
I
He's
think
gonna bring back Stillwater.
they will be.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone's traveling south in the next book, unless there's like a relatively big time skip.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be on Lether or Seven Cities for the next book.
You think so?
Well, the first part of Karsa's journey, right, was Templor lands, and then he was taken to Seven Cities, and then he goes to Lether, right? So I figured maybe the trilogy would follow that path, but I have no idea.
I would be really interested to see what Leather looks like now, because as we leave them off, they essentially have the perfect form of governance. Tehul is essentially Plato's wet dream for Philosopher King. And as we know, Tehul intends to be the last king of Leatherhas. So he probably set up a democracy or like a republic or something like that in his wake.
I hope we could see that. Steve,
Mm.
please.
Yeah, that's like when you mentioned earlier, like this could be his last trilogy. I was like, but I want a little more in Lethris. That's about
Yes.
it.
Yeah, same.
So, I did not care for Nilgon when we first met him and for a while, but he really grew on me. Gower too, and their relationship as well with our aunt.
Yeah.
The Jack as a whole did for me.
It became a lot more clear once we knew that they were brothers. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's what's going on. Yeah, this is awesome.
Mhm.
This is brotherly feuds.
Yeah, and the Zhek, it always felt like something that was not explored much in the Book of the Fallen. That it was
Mhm.
one of those races that people talk about, but we know even less about them than we do the Moranth, right? And we learned a lot about them in this book, and I was really happy about that.
Speaking of the Moranth, what happened to them?
Yeah, the one character was like, "You're not gonna meet a Moranth." I thought that just meant like they're rare, which is
Well,
obvious because we haven't seen any since Gardens of the Moon.
And the Malazans, um, they don't have Moranth munitions anymore.
Oh right, yeah, that's also big.
So the alliance has to be gone, right?
we knew the Alliance was on its decline, right?
Maybe they don't like
I
Moranth at all.
maybe they kill each other with their technology.
I hope not. Oh man, I really want to get like an in-depth exploration of Moranth culture
Me too.
because we've gotten hints of it, right? And like nothing beyond that.
I thought they were gonna be so big when I read Gardens, and then they're just really not.
Yeah.
Minus the munitions.
I wish we had more Bellum Nom in this book because I love Bellum Nom, and he was just in like a very small port.
Mhm. Another of the House of Nom. They're everywhere.
Many
Is
cousins.
Darujistan part of the Empire now?
Hey, it looks like it.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah. Why else would
Uh,
Nom
I
join?
think it is because they say all of Genebacus is under the control of the Empire.
I feel like they would have mentioned the last free city if it was still the last free city.
Point.
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel about that.
I get the feeling that Darujistan is largely the same as it was, because as we know, if you integrate with the Malazan Empire peacefully, they essentially let you do whatever you want
Just no
and keep your
slavery.
culture and stuff like that. Yeah, don't do
Well,
slavery. Don't get too overboard with your cults.
Yeah.
Besides
One
that,
culling per year.
yeah, don't let your nobles get too uppity.
I like the one line we got with talking about Samar Dev, and that
Yes.
she may or may not be Karsa's lover. I really hope we get to meet Samar Dev soon.
I
Yes.
think whenever we meet Karsa, she'll be there. But I do think we'll meet him. Rant will meet him. And I like how at the beginning of the book, Rant is pretty dead set on kind of killing Karsa. But then at the end, he's asked by 3, I believe, and he says he doesn't know what he's going to do. That shows some development as well.
It
Yeah.
depends on his answer, right? Which
Yeah.
I think Karsa will grow up a little bit because he never answers, what he did there.
Hmm.
I think this will be the conclusion of that.
Yeah, and he's the nature of him as an unwilling god, given that we know his own feelings on what God's responsibilities are, I think is really interesting and will make for something really excellent to be explored in the next
He could
book.
learn a lot from Warbitch because Warbitch seems to know what it means to be a god.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she, like, very active. I was impressed.
I like
although
her.
very active for like the first time in like millennia or something like that.
True.
She's just been
She
hiding
saved the
out in
Jack.
the world for a while. Yeah, she saved the check.
So when they first started talking about Warbitch, I thought it was Fandaray.
Hmm.
I think Tog and Fandery are gone.
I thought maybe it was just Tog who died, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, like they were mortally wounded or something like that. Or it's just past their time, you know?
Yeah, I guess Warbitch is the Warbitch the current god of war?
I don't
Ah,
think so. I get
I
the
didn't
feeling,
talk about it. I think that's just her name.
yeah.
Yeah. I
I
thought
like,
that was the route that Steve was gonna go at first. I was like, okay, there's a new animal that's gonna be the god of war. Because I mean, I guess Treach isn't really a
he's
top
dead.
bet anymore because yeah, so is Fenrir. I don't even know who else that leaves.
The humans are the gods of war now.
Yeah, maybe
True.
it's just one of those guys has moved in. Coltane. I actually could
Oh, that'd be
see
interesting.
God of War. Wow, look at me stumbling upon these things.
Black Crow. There's an
Yeah,
ad.
his cult is really
Yeah, I like
flourishing.
the epigraphs about that. I can't wait. I that's why I kind of hope we go to Seven Cities next.
Yeah, like I think he probably has a December Dassen thing going on.
Where like
So like
he is split from his aspect of worship.
Hmm. But who knows, right?
yeah.
What have the Wiccans been up to,
Oh, I can't wait to meet. Oh, I hope we visit the Whippets again.
right?
Yeah.
Because what's the last time we see them? Is it Return of the Crimson Guard, or
For me, it's Bone Hunters. I haven't read any Ashaman books.
okay,
I forgot if they show up. I don't think they show up in the later ones,
okay,
unless it's one or two characters.
because they are left off in a quite the position, let's say. So, Steve, your world is too interesting. Like, I cannot think of another fantasy world where I want to be all around the world at once, because everybody has an interesting story that I want to see continued.
Luckily, he does that in the main 10 at least.
Yeah. But, like, what's Seven Cities up to?
Yeah.
Last we saw, they were pretty destroyed, but
Seems like
Maybe,
they're doing pretty well.
maybe.
Yeah.
Like, what's the state of the Malazan Empire, too?
And is New Morn a city already, or is that the future city?
Well, they have a
And
library. Oh, wait. Yeah. It could be future.
what's Grub up to?
I know that was one of the most disappointing parts of this book, because I was hoping we could meet Grub.
I was hoping for at least a mention of him, right? Like, he's the first sword, right?
Mm-hmm. At some point. Maybe now.
I hope that Ohms meets Grub somewhere.
I would like that.
There's so many like, I have no idea where this series is going. There are so many things Steve could do with it, and this feels good, right? Like a lot of series, you know the general shape of what's gonna happen, right? But
Wonder if Ian plans on writing anything,
that's a good
after
question.
sale, because I believe the Gestalt is actually takes place after third book in the Path to Ascendancy. I'm not sure though.
Oh, that's interesting. I would be very interested in Emperor Malachorel.
Same.
It would be really fun to read, but it would just probably make me very angry.
Yeah,
I have
because
a question.
like he essentially just gets away with everything.
Oh, yeah. But have you guys read all the Ashaman books?
I
The
haven't read
Tales
all
of
of them. I've read
Malazan
a few of
Empire?
them.
I have. They
Okay.
talk about the end of Stormwielder in this one, and some events in a sale are the reason why the mass are flesh and bone.
Yeah, I like picked that up in like the end of the war. But is the hole in the wall of ice because of one of those books?
Yes, the end of a
Okay.
sale.
Okay.
And yeah, the Samedi are essentially just like an isolated culture of Imas that hasn't really changed
Mm-hmm.
in thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. They don't even have flint, which is what like our Imas had before they did the ritual, right? So these are
I thought the EMAS were just flesh and bone Kalanimas.
I don't think so. I think they were like a separated culture that were just kind of warring with the Blackjack for a long time, and the ice was keeping them separated from the world.
That would make sense.
The Jagged really like to do that with their ice. Just
Yeah.
Reconfirms that.
Those epigraphs about the Jackut and their experiments were interesting.
And maybe the Jagged are like making a comeback. I don't know.
I hope so. I really hope so.
I mixed
was it-
feelings about them.
Was it Stillwater who said she had an argument with a Jaghut in the Jagodon?
Someone definitely said that.
I hope it was Synagig. I think it was Synagig.
Oh yeah.
We get to
Probably.
learn that Jagged horses are carnivorous, which is
Yeah, that was so cool.
pretty wild.
That
Yeah,
was
like
nice tidbit.
the Jagged are like the race that like most alters the environment just around them by just existing.
Yeah.
Which has really interesting implications, and to me seems to be almost universally bad thing for people.
They're a force of nature,
Yeah.
quite literally at times.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't have really a culture or any civilization ever since Gothos kind of did his poetry slam. Um,
Everybody went along with the joke.
yeah, and ever since it's just been like isolated Jagat just doing their own thing, reshaping the world.
I think most of that was a defense mechanism.
Maybe.
Well, that's why the ice is, at least in Genabacchus, is going away because they're retreating their
Yeah,
power
yeah, they don't
because
need
that
it
they put up
anymore.
from the war. Yeah.
At first, I thought it was because of Hood being back on the throne of ice.
What's Hood
I
up
was,
to?
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to know what's it up to.
he's retired. I don't know.
Retired on the throne of ice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is he a god then?
Well, I think so. If he's not a god, then he's god tier in terms of power.
I mean,
I
his
hope
turn is running
the
Hood's or Deathsworn.
yeah. I hope the Jagat are breeding and they I want them to make a city. I know it's
I think
impossible.
okay. I would like it if the Jagat congregated and made a city and were like distributed everywhere. Um, but I also think that minus like Jagat Tinder, there's like no way they find each other, right?
Yeah.
or like even
Yeah.
like put in the energy to find other Jagat because they for the most part have shown no inclination to be with others of their own kind.
That's the real problem, right?
Yeah, they just don't care. um,
So the god's not willing.
God is not willing. Iskar Jarak is still guarding Hood's gate. I got the feeling it was going to be much more of like a very temporary thing.
Oh, really?
But yeah, because he said in the at the end of the Book of the Fallen that he was like he was going to do it as long as they were needed.
Better than an alternative, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I'm really curious as to what he's going to do with that because I don't think he's leaving that alone in this series. I think they're definitely gonna either leave or become established or something like that by the end.
Why is the Shigal assassin in the knife? And why did Spindle have the knife?
I don't know.
Was it Spindle that gave him the knife?
Yeah, I thought it was Spindle.
Oh, I thought it was just like a random marine.
I believe you.
I
Yeah, I
thought
don't know how.
You're the one who's
Hawk
read this
Spindle
twice,
made him.
but I don't remember it being Spindle explicitly. But why is the assassin in the knife? Why did the knife not break when it went into the rock? So we have precedent for spirits going to knives, right? With Kars's sword. And the dagger, as far as I know, it was just a dagger before made out of air and steel. So I think this ties back to the nature of Rant and like what exactly is he capable of?
My mind keeps going back to Damask freeing the god and the Sky Keeps. Maybe, I don't know, some sort of time mumbo jumbo made it so that knife ends up in Rant's hands. I don't even know if there was a knife anywhere in that scene, or I don't know. That's my only possible theory.
I have no idea what the fallout of that god being let free is going to be.
Did that god ever make a second appearance? I kept getting confused between
No.
like War Bitch and like a
It
couple other
didn't.
gods.
It felt kind of like when Callum unleashed the demon at the end of the bottom of the well, and the demon comes back later and helps him out, or
But the
the
god,
Templar.
yeah, the god had black skin and silver hair, right?
Did it?
Yeah, I think you're right. It did.
Oh, interesting.
Definitely seemed, some Andy vibes. Who knows?
But it had multiple, like a lot of arms too.
Oh, it had like 3 sets of arms.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it was on a world populated by Chain Shamal. Oh, okay. So actually, that would make sense because we know the Andy, when they came to Wu, at least they had it out with the Chain Shamal. Maybe they did on other worlds as well.
I'm hoping Walk in Shadow clears up some of how all these races came to live together on the same planet. Although, with Kark, it's like oh, we're already on Wu, but then like where does the dark what is the dark warren called again?
Carl Galen
Galania.
Yeah, like where's Kralgaling go? Because they're there, but they're also like
and Amtos
on
Felak is
Wu.
within walking distance.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. Amtos Falak is a stone throw away, so like who knows? And I
Right.
know there's also the aspect of like, oh, this is a telling of a story that may or may not be true,
Mhm.
or details are
Made up.
shady. But as a reader, I literally take the entire series so far as truth because it makes it easier for myself.
I do have a few points where I think Blind Galen is switching around the story.
hmm
I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but I definitely remember thinking, no, it couldn't have happened that way. It had to have happened this way instead.
Yeah.
But in the end, like, does it? Yeah, well, the question of how much it matters is really up for grabs. Yeah, okay, most of what I have left to say is what has X character been up to, I think. Because I could say that about, I think, every character that's left alive. Because, like, where did Quick Ben go, right?
I agree entirely. I was wondering the same.
Okay, so, listeners, take away from this, I am curious about literally every non-dead character and some dead characters going forward.
There was mention of bridge burners retired in Drudistan, but at the end of Toll the Hounds, there weren't many to even consider like it being worth going there. So maybe like I don't know, maybe some of the 14 ended up there, like maybe Fiddlers in Drudistan.
Fiddler's in Malaz Island.
Well, he was.
Just in Last City, yes, but maybe he left.
Could be. Yeah, but Spindle already knew about the Malazans in Durajistan, so yeah, maybe. Who is Bliss Raleigh? I felt like we should know who she is.
I think she's just a famous soldier
Okay.
named Bliss Raleigh. Because Spindle doesn't recognize her as anyone other than Bliss Raleigh. I am really rooting for Picker and Blend to have kids of some kind. I would
That'd be
be
nice.
so down for a Picker and Blend parental dynamic.
Maybe they got him from the mines outside the city.
Yeah. Or, hey, there's a lot of magic. They could have conceived together. I'm not putting past that, right?
Okay.
Also, another big unresolved plot thread from Book of the Fallen, Troll's son.
Yes.
That's
Knight
all
of
I have
Shadow.
on there. Yeah, Knight of Shadow.
Maybe it'll come up. Maybe not. There's a good chance that we're not going to know anything about this. Uh, there are a lot of really good lines in this book. I'm not going to share them, but I think for the amount of pages in this book, more than others, there are just some really great lines that will stick with me.
Oh, absolutely. I was more than. Okay, so I started out highlighting a lot of quotes in the Book of the Fallen, and pretty much House of Chains I had almost nothing. Not because I thought that the book was a lower quality. It's just I don't think there's as many one-liners that are, like that really stand out. But this feels like there are. And actually, that brings me to the final quote I've highlighted, which is from Damask. In his youth, Damask had questioned little. He'd thought that taking the world as it was marked him as a wise man. And, ooh, Steve, you don't need to attack teenage me like this. There's this idea that people who are optimistic or trying to make a difference in the world are naive, and like that the cynical people are just like above it all. It's like, oh, nothing is ever going to change. I'm just going to be here and be bitter about the way of the world. And they think that makes them smarter or better in some way. And I think that maybe the most important part of growing up is learning to not be that way. Because
empathy, right? Learning other people's.
yeah, because the first stage of growing up, right, is disillusionment. You realize that your parents weren't perfect, that a lot of things that you took for granted are essentially lies, and people aren't. They can do some horrible things to each other. And I think it's
Second stage
important.
is thinking that you know everything.
Yeah, and it's second stage is thinking that because it's all like these things are all lies, that it's fine to stop there, or it's fine to not care. But I think most importantly, realize you need to care. You need to try and fix things. You need to do your best to make the world a better place.
Yeah. Similar quote from Damask. Want to see it in terms of good and evil, of right and wrong? That's not the way of the wilds, because those words are rarely about people judging other people, and the problem with that is you can't find any truth you can't find truth studying the scales if your own eyes skewed, and everyone's eyes are skewed, whether they admit it or not. Then he goes on to say, forget good and evil, right and wrong, think instead of terms of suffering and blessing. That's just kind of like about how your perspective on life changes as you get older. That was like Damask fathering Runt.
That was
Samus just has tons of really great lines.
Damask going through his postmodern phase. Which is very much that style of thinking.
Yeah.
I am someone who does believe that there is good and bad. I don't think it's simple, but I do think it's there. And a lot of it does, in my mind, come down to suffering and blessing. But that, we will not break down my moral system here.
Fine.
So, my closing thoughts. This is a really good book. Steve worries that he isn't as good of a writer as he was.
Nonsense.
I am very much on the record as him. That being a load of BS, he has so much left to give, and this feels very much on the level of the Book of the Fallen, and I really hope it does well.
Me too.
Me too.
All the best wishes, Steve, and
Yeah,
please give us
Steve,
Walking Showers soon.
you're such a good writer. Ugh. All right, you guys done?
Yeah, that was a good talk.
That concludes our review of The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson. Many thanks for listening, listeners. I would like to give a shout out to members of the Green Team that don't often get shout outs, specifically Little Red Book. She manages the schedule. She keeps us organized.
And she listens to our episodes.
She listens to our episodes.
Even though she hasn't read.
Yeah. Red, thank you. You are pretty invaluable. I am Ashaman. This has been Hurinfan and Sean. See you next time.
Sayonara.
Goodbye.